Welcome to Season 4 of AIHA's podcast series, The Healthier Workplaces Show, where we explore timely and informative topics about occupational and environmental health and safety. I'm your host, Alejandro Castillo. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with AIHA President Bradley King, as well as Phil Clark, the founder of UpskillESH.com. Based in Denver, Bradley King is a senior industrial hygienist for the Western States Division of the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health. Since 2002, he has been an environmental health officer in the U.S. Public Health Service, currently holding the rank of captain. He has 25 years of experience in comprehensive industrial hygiene. Bradley has received a bachelor's degree in biological science from Loyola University, New Orleans, a master of public health from St. Louis University, and a PhD in environmental health sciences from the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. Phil Clark is a health and safety professional and educator. He served 5 years with the U.S. Navy as the industrial hygienist for West Coast Navy SEAL units and for airframe component manufacturing and repair operations, where he focused on practical controls, clear risk communication, and defensible documentation. He then spent 12 years at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory supporting safe work on hydrogen and battery energy storage research programs and benchtop chemistry work. Phil is now the founder of UpskillESH.com, an online AI and automation training service for IH and EHS professionals. Today, we're exploring how AI is shaping and enhancing the field of OHS, while also learning about some of the limitations and challenges. Bradley, Phil, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Let's start with the basics. What exactly is artificial intelligence?
Yeah, I can jump in there, Phil. Very simply, artificial intelligence is a, kind of a combination of computer technologies that are intended to address problems that in the past have traditionally required human intelligence. And so there are a number of categories of these types of technologies that fall under the general term artificial intelligence. And so those types of technologies include things like, agentic AI, large language models, and natural language processing, predictive analytics via machine learning, things like that. The problems that we talk about in terms of how AI could be beneficial really are things like, where it shines are pattern detection, prediction, helping in decision making, optimizing processes, things like that. So there's kind of a wide variety of ways in which AI is being developed to be used. And it's really exciting to think about how those ways can be applied to the work that we do as OEH professionals.
So one of the things too is the way that AI is different from traditional technology is that it's really a software that learns patterns from data. And so it's not necessarily something that we traditionally sit down and hard code. It's something where you give it patterns and teach it how to quote unquote think, and then it can make inferences based on that information that it's given or trained upon. And like Bradley was saying, is something that can be used to make predictions and decisions without explicitly being programmed to do so.
How interesting. I feel like the future is here now, really.
It totally is.
So what inspired AIHA to put this guidance document together? Why is this the right time to talk about AI in OHS?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Thanks. This really goes back to last year. So some of our members may or may not know that about every 5 years, AIHA does an environmental scan looking at the types of future trends that might be important for us to consider as OEH professionals in the content that we produce for our members, in the education, really where are we going and what kind of trends are going to impact not only the greater society, but us as a profession. And within that environmental scan that occurred in 2024, AI came up again and again and again in so many different ways. And so it's clear just from the news that we hear, about things that are being generated in terms of new tools and new technologies, there is an exciting amount of, work that's being done in this area. And as professionals, AIHA really does need to make sure that our members and people who are practicing OEHS understand these future trends and how they're going to impact work in general, but also our work as industrial hygienists. So because these trends were so important and clearly identified, the board of directors really felt like we needed to have some sort of foundational document that describes AI, the different types of AI, the risks, the benefits to using this type of technology within our professional practice. And so we had convened a working group to pull together folks who are early adopters and really trying to see how this future trend is being implemented now. And what we need to be doing for setting, the stage for future use of it. So, this particular document is intended as an introduction to AI for our members. There are a lot of early adopters out there who really are doing great things. But then I do believe that there are a lot of members out there who have heard about it on the news, but haven't played around with it a whole lot yet. And so we wanted to just give some background information, a good solid foundation in understanding AI and the different types of AI tools, and to give examples of how it is currently being used. And so this working group convened over the past several months to work and to develop this foundational document. There have been a number of synergist articles that have been written by members as well, a number of PDCs. And so we're hoping to, as an association, to continue to build on this foundation because it's only going to be more important and more prevalent in terms of its use as we move forward.
I think one of the first things that would be important to talk about before diving into something that specific is really talking about the breadth of where we see AI these days, right? So obviously everybody knows the chatbots. There's chatbots where you can help with document creation, with data analytics, with all sorts of traditional, what we historically considered like white collar considerations and white collar jobs of doing a lot of heavy thinking and, analysis with traditional data. And that's a major change in and of itself. But AI, recently, I say recently, it's been a while in AI years, but the capacity for evaluating multimodal. And what I mean by multimodal is not just text. It can accommodate speech. It can accommodate, creation and listening on speech. It can review video. It can review images, text, all that information, and synthesize that content. And you can even layer in additional, what you could consider modal or modalities of sensor technology. And if you embed those in there, then you can get some kind of spatial recognition where you may have sensors that have both location and, information on vapors that they're exposed to or kind of exposures that they're exposed to in real time. And even with traditional technology, non-AI technology, that's a great way to be able to assess worker exposures. But then if you can layer on AI on top of that and see where exposures could be and give in that kind of predictive element of it and decision-making element of it, you really start to enhance capacities for what you can do in the future. And some of this is speculation. There's sensors that are here and now, and then there's speculations on once they really start being able to embed AI on the chip. And as those chips become bigger and better and more powerful, and I should say even smaller, we're going to get more and more capabilities with how we can integrate this into our profession. So it's a really exciting time to see stuff like that.
With the vast amounts of data collected by wearable devices, how can this data be effectively analyzed and translated into actionable insights for OEHS professionals?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and one which I don't know if we have a great answer to it yet. There's a tremendous amount of interest in this question about big data and data that comes in fast and large amounts of data, and how do industrial hygienists and other OEHS professionals use that data and manage it appropriately? And this question about how we do that is, I think, still evolving. And the addition of AI tools on top of big data streams, I think represents an idea for how AI could be applied, but I still think that there's a lot of work to do at this point in time to see realistically and practically how AI can be used to effectively analyze and use its predictive capabilities. So I think it's a great question. I do believe that we can see that the use of AI tools will probably head in that direction, but it's an area that is ripe for further exploration, and I think no one necessarily has the right answer for that yet. Phil?
Yeah, and I think it's data is not a new thing, and it's the quantity of data that's the new thing, and the structure of it. And so historically, most of the data that we as industrial agents had was structured data, or data that we could at least structure in like an Excel spreadsheet or a Python, a Python script or something like that, and derive some degree of information from that maybe wasn't tremendously insightful. Maybe it was a good move forward, but maybe it wouldn't offer predictive capabilities of the future. It was really a way to say, like, what was our exposure, or what have our issues been? It never really goes towards like thinking into the future of how we advance or use the technology to make better decisions. And the benefit that AI gives us is the ability to pull in structured or unstructured data and really make those inferred and kind of insightful predictions based on those. And so, and the quantity of data that it can accommodate is absolutely astounding. And that's something that's way beyond what we have been able to do with spreadsheets and things like that. And so even beyond like wearables, we have sensors in laboratories, sensors in production facilities. We have all sorts of gas monitoring that collect data that OSHA requires we keep. And if we're required to keep it, then let's figure out a way to use it. And that's something that AI can really, really help us do. And there's an enormous amount of tools and an enormous amount of capabilities that it can do. And so it's that way that we can find those patterns and really translate that into action going forward.
Expand your IH fundamental skill set with understanding exposure variability and IH statistics. Register today to earn 7.5 contact hours on October 22nd.
Now, with new tools come new risks, of course. What risks do you think OEHS professionals need to understand when it comes to adopting AI?
There's a lot.
That's a big question.
It is a great question.
Yeah. In terms of risks, the first ones that come to mind are, because you're using such a tremendous amount of data, the risks of data security and data privacy are, first and foremost, something that OEHS professionals need to be thinking about. You want to make sure that the publicly available AI tools, while they can be powerful, and tempting to use, you do have to consider that those are public, those are public tools, and the insertion of private confidential information into those public tools can create a real security issue for the data that you're using and wanting to apply to AI. So you really need to be thinking about data security and data implementation. Additionally, I guess a thought that I had was that while AI sounds fascinating and I think can provide some really useful tools, OEHS professionals really need to make sure that they are providing appropriate supervision of the tools. AI is not ever going to replace professional judgment. It can be a tool to help to augment your professional judgment, but there's the risk of OEHS professionals over relying on AI to an extent that if AI is providing you false information that you have not thoroughly vetted through the process, it can lead to certainly dangerous situations. So, those were a couple of risks that came to my mind. Phil?
Yeah, and I mean, I almost see there being multiple classifications of risk, right?
Uh-huh.
So you have technical risk of uh, what can the AI actually do, and you obviously run into issues of bias. You have run into issues of hallucinations, which is an AI confidently stating something that's erroneous. So those are like really technical risks that you run into. Um, you also run into the um, societal risks, or maybe even like the industry risks of over reliance on this technology and having decay in your brain. And I mean, there are articles that have recently come out about what happens to your brain when you rely upon using LLMs for generated reports or writing for you, because it is the natural progression of how we're going to write. It's already embedded in Microsoft Word, in Google Docs, everything like that. So it is here to stay. We just have to learn how to deal with it. And then I think even like more societal risks that pertain to industry are, what do we do with our entry level technicians or our entry level professionals? You have people coming in fresh out of grad school with an industrial hygiene degree who are sharp and ready to go, and they want to get their hands dirty. And a lot of the stuff that we all, cut our teeth on as entry level professionals may not be there as a job for us to really learn. If we're pushing all the data that we get from our analytical results straight into a GPT, even if it's a secure GPT, like through Azure, Microsoft Azure, which really allows for uh, putting in secure or confidential information, even if we have that, we're bypassing a professional that professional used to use, kind of that aiming towards the future of how do we get this person the skills and knowledge to become a CIH or to become a manager of an OESH group. And that's not there anymore. And we're seeing people not hire as many individuals, or maybe hire more advanced professionals who can really scrutinize and see if the AI is hallucinating, because they have 20 years experience in the field and they know when it's lying. One of the big risks that I've seen personally is people using it like Google and saying, what is the occupational exposure limit for hydrofluoric acid? And then coming back and saying a value, and they're like, okay, and keep on going. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, that is a wrong answer. Like, you got to have that skepticism. And that only comes through understanding of a little bit of history of and experience of working in the profession for time. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of benefits, but there's a lot of risks that we as practitioners have to consider, and people like Bradley in higher levels of AIHA and these organizations really have to consider. And I think that's a big motivator on why this document came out in the first place.
Now, what exactly is the garbage in, garbage out problem?
Yeah. So we mentioned this in the document, what we call the garbage in, garbage out problem. And I think I had mentioned data quality on the previous answer, but it's such a big issue and something that OEHS professionals really need to understand. So, let's say you have a data set and, you traditionally had done manual data analysis. Well, during that process, you oftentimes would have had the opportunity to really dig into your data, look at the quality of the data, make sure that there aren't spelling mistakes or errors inherent to the data, or data in the wrong column, things like that. All of the data cleaning process that we all know we do when we're dealing with data. If you're using poor quality data and you just incorporate that into a tool, the poor garbage that you're putting into that will potentially yield a garbage output from the tool. So the quality of the output is only as good as the quality of the data that you put into it. And so, the importance of making sure that you, understand the data that you're putting into it is, hugely important for making sure that you get a product that you can trust on what's coming out. So in addition to that, this is data that you might be using. If potentially you're using public data for use in a tool, there are concerns about the quality of that public data that you might be using. And so it's probably no surprise to think that there are data sets that are in public use that incorporate a number of biases that could potentially cause a biased output. And so it is imperative upon OEHS professionals to really understand the importance of making sure that whatever data set that you're using, whether it's your own or potentially public data, is of a quality that would yield a quality output.
Yeah, and I think there's even like data in, data out issues if you go one level further and look at how was the model trained in the first place? Like, how did OpenAI actually create this thing that produces these amazing results? And you can see not necessarily data that we introduce into it, like that we want analyzed. That's one of those things where that's always been an issue. If you put crummy data into an Excel spreadsheet, you're going to get crummy data out. That's just the way it is. But that kind of stands true for people like Sam Altman, who are creating these LLMs, these large language models, where what did they actually use to train the model in the first place? I mean, if they were using something on a website that talks about poor practices of using ventilation and teaches you wrong equations for flow through ducting, and it says this is the right answer, or this is an example of something that's correct, then when it's on the outside of that, it confidently states that, and even though it's wrong. And that's kind of an example of bias. Other one is, if there's populations of people who have different responses to exposures. I mean, this can have everything to do with genetics or nationality or things like that. And if the data or the LLM was only trained on a subset of one nationality, and then it'll apply that bias across all other nationalities, even though it may be incorrect as it does so. So there's a lot of instances or examples of bias and how it can be biased. I know they're trying to do a lot to address that in LLMs, but it's hard to do. It's hard to reverse biases that have already been anchored in these LLMs. And so I don't know where they're going to go with that, actually. It's super interesting, and we'll see where the future takes us. It moves so quickly. It moves so quickly. So we'll see.
So what tips would you recommend for an OEHS professional to develop a stronger fundamental AI literacy?
So, I think there are a number of tools that are starting to become available. A lot of it is, in my opinion, self-exploration and, trying to get your hands on some of these tools, playing around with it, use some dummy data sets, and really getting your feet wet with the technology. I think you're going to learn a lot in just playing around with it and, seeing what types of things can be done. There are clearly some trainings that are out there provided by third-party sources. I know that AIHA leadership has expressed interest in the association also developing further content, educational content that can help to better educate and inform our members on the types of tools that are out there, things they need to be thinking about. So we are actively trying to look at opportunities and to develop those types of opportunities to better train folks within our association on this technology. I would say, if you're fortunate enough also to be at a company that has the types of resources where these types of tools can already be implemented or are starting to be implemented, talk to the data scientists in your organization. I think collaboration as a rule, is going to be hugely important for OEHS professionals as we start to learn how these technologies can be used by our profession. And so Make sure that you're collaborating with the data scientists and the IT folks within your organization, with the different management departments, and with the workers themselves. It's I think a collaborative relationship with all of those different groups that are going to allow you to be able to learn and incorporate these types of tools for the situations that individuals might find themselves in. So I think a lot of people have unique situations that they're trying to explore, and it really just will take, I think, some practice. Practice makes perfect.
Yeah, I think this is also a softball pitch too. Download the Using AI to Enhance OESH publication that AIHA just put out. Like, read it. It has a lot of information that a lot of people put a lot of time into. We're at this nexus where I think people have to take initiative on adopting new techniques and technology. And it's going to evolve beyond just like staying relevant in your profession and the technical aspects of maintaining your CIH or maintaining your certification, whatever it is, and having to branch out and learn new techniques on how you actually apply that in your workplace. And so I think reading documents like this, taking trainings that aren't necessarily OESH focused, or are adjacent to OESH. That's, as an educator, that's something that I'm passionate about, is do trainings, take trainings that are relevant to both the profession and to the new way to execute the profession. There's way too many resources to list, but there's a lot of opportunities to get out the word and really kind of find new ways to do work. So, but it really comes down to get your hands dirty. Like, get into a chatbot, pay $20 a month for like a lovable account where you can dive in and you can create websites and SaaS tools that are appropriate to ESH just through natural language. It's mind-blowing what you can build these days. It's not just that traditional chatbot that everybody thinks of. So get out there, get your hands dirty, explore, and sign up for trainings.
Yeah. And I just want to add on to that too. I do think the use of AI will be a fundamental knowledge, skill, and ability that people coming out of college and universities are going to need. So I think that ultimately we really need to be pushing educational programs to be teaching this as a fundamental skill for just general use. But I would love to see some examples of our industrial hygiene training programs at universities across the country really starting to think about how they can incorporate AI into the content that they're teaching students, because I do think that it's going to be so fundamental that they're got students coming out of universities are hopefully will at some point get that type of training in as part of their educational journey at the college graduate school level. So I think I understand there's a lot of pressure that our educators are already facing with the amount of information that they're trying to teach our students, but I think this is an area that we really need to be thinking about the future and potentially incorporating it into our educational programs at that level as well.
But it's interesting. Like, I think what we're going to see is a lot of digital natives who they have lived their entire lives with AI eventually kind of come out of the university where they may not need a training. But who do? The late career professionals, the mid-career professionals, those people who, like, they're used to Google or they're used to a slide rule, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But man, they're going to be challenged with the pace of output that's expected of them. And so that's a whole new issue of, you got to train early career professionals, but you also have to think of, mid to late career professionals, because they're going to have some of the hardest times wrapping their heads around some of these crazy technologies. So there's a lot of opportunities. There's a lot of interesting things. And then you even have to incorporate learning about the ethics of applying AI to this as well. And so it's not just learning about the tool, but what is the ethical approach of this? And how do groups like AIHA and ABIH actually respond to, their documentations for code of ethics too. So that's a different story.
Did you miss AIHA Connect 2025? Access the premier education programming of Connect 2025 for 1 year from the date of purchase. Purchase AIHA's 2025 full education package and earn up to 118.5 contact hours, all in one place. Scan the QR code to learn more.
So let me ask you this. Let's time travel 20, 25 years into the future. How do you see AI playing as a strong role in OHS?
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows.
Like that is not a joke. Like people are speculating that artificial general intelligence, or AGI, is something that may be possible in the next few years. Elon Musk is claiming that Grok 5 is going to hit AGI in December. Like, a lot of it's marketing, a lot of it's speculation, but holy cow, the pace with which things have advanced in the last 2.5 years, if that is any indicator, I don't know what I think is going to happen 5 years down the line, let alone 25. Bradley was mentioning how, AI will never take the decision making from an OESH professional. And I would love to agree with that. But 25 years down the line, I don't know what it looks like. And it's funny because I'll give you an example. So when I took the CIH exam, there was like one question where I knew I deserved the CIH. It was a question on Route's law. And, if you have like a certain amount of, a mixture of chemicals in a drum and the bung is open and it's at this temperature in a storage shed, what is the vapor pressure of, a certain solvent in that, and how much ventilation would you need to actually like get that down to a safe state? And I got the question right. It took me 30 minutes to get it, but man, I knew that I deserved that CIH once I finished that question. And version 3 of AI or ChatGPT came out, and I put that question in and asked it, and it got it completely wrong. I was like, all right, I'm still relevant. And then version 4 came out, and I put that question in there, and like, ooh, that's a little better, but you're still wrong. I got it. Like, I'm still relevant. And then version 5 came out, and it got it right, and boy, did it get it right in 32 seconds. And like, part of my heart broke, and it was like, I'm happy, but I'm also really sad because it means a lot about our profession. Like, where do we find ourselves in our role in here? There's always going to be a relational element to worker safety and health. And that is something that we can pretty much rely on for as long as there's humans working, there will be a way to protect them and have that relationship with them. Decision making, I don't know what 25 years of AI and continual building and refining looks like long term.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah, I completely agree, Phil. Even in writing this document that our work group worked on, there were a lot of questions about, like, by the time we get this published, will this even be relevant anymore? Because the technology has moved so quickly beyond what it is. And we felt like, we tried to keep this document at a high level that we felt like if we needed to come back and look at the issues again in 3 years or 5 years to see how far things have come, we would do that. But, we recognize that this technology is moving so quickly. It's hard to put anything on paper before it's already, advanced beyond that. And so I do think Phil is right that it's so much can change in 25 years that it is really hard to predict what it is that the impact of AI tools upon our profession will actually look like. I do want to reiterate what he said about, the relationship between protecting humans at work will always be there for those of us who are in our profession. What exactly that might look like in terms of the decisions that are being made and how that protection is being afforded, is an interesting question to ponder, given the rapid acceleration of these types of tools. So, I'm looking forward to seeing where that goes, but it's hard to predict what 25 years I think will actually look like.
Even 2 years.
Yeah.
Right.
I guess we'll find out, right?
Yeah, we all will.
Bradley, Phil, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks
You're
for having
welcome.
us.
Thanks for
Appreciate it.
having us.
That wraps up today's episode of the Healthier Workplaces Show. To learn more, visit the AIHA website and follow us on social media. Thank you for tuning in, and as always, remember that healthier workplaces mean a healthier world. Until next time. To learn more, visit the AIHA website and follow us on social media. Thank you for tuning in, and as always, remember that healthier workplaces mean a healthier world. Until next time.